Hello and welcome to the 54th edition of the Two Black to Nerdy podcast. I'm your host, Chris.
And I'm your host, Chris.
And today, we know we've been gone for a little bit. We're going to catch up on a lot of the comic media today. We're going to talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which just came out a couple days before this recording. And then we're going to go over, I guess you would say, maybe like the DC projects we're most excited about. James Gunn recently revealed upcoming DC movies that are in development over at Warner Brothers. It is a new day.
But not
sun.
Batgirl.
The sun is rising. And before we get started, Chris, want to go ahead and introduce our guests, and then we can get rolling.
Yes, coming from the lands of TikTok and video production, we have a good friend of mine, JJ, aka Freddie's roommate. How's it going?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing good.
You know, JJ, if you haven't seen his TikToks, they have a wide range. I remember when I first followed him, it was during, like his fashion upgrade phase, like that's where I found him. So, and he's talking about comics, Star Wars, has done video transitions, has worked for various companies in their social media channels. I don't know if you wanna plug them, who you used to work for. I'm gonna let you flex a little bit.
Oh yeah, I revamped the Denny's TikTok social media, and then I left and got hired at a company called Homage. They're a vintage apparel company that does all sorts of like licensed merch that you can wear. Like, we have a whole Nickelodeon line. We do sports. Any team that you could think of, we probably have, except for Georgia. We don't talk about Georgia. I don't know why, but yeah, go follow me at Freddie's Roommate, or if you want some new clothes ideas, please follow at Homage.
All right.
Very cool.
So we're ready to talk into this. I know I saw. I know I texted Chris after we saw Ant-Man, and I know I saw your tweets. JJ, we talked about one thing in particular.
So before we get into the review, I just want to set the stage for the state of the Marvel fandom right now, because I think it's in a very interesting place. So, Wakanda Forever, the last review we did was the end of the Phase 4 of the Marvel movies. The general consensus on Phase 4 by most of the fandom is that it's a little bit kind of all over the place. There were projects that some people liked, some projects that people didn't really like, some reasons were legitimate, some weren't. So Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is the first movie in Phase 5. This movie was highly anticipated because it's technically the second time we're seeing Jonathan Majors play King the Conqueror. But this was like the first, project where we're really going to see, King the Conqueror, who's sort of, at least we're told as of right now, to be the new sort of overarching villain within the movies, after Thanos. So there was definitely a lot of anticipation going into this movie. When the premiere happened, I feel like the reactions are mostly positive. I think they kind of almost have to be. And then once the movie started releasing towards other critics and general audiences, I want to say the week before, you started getting reviews that were more like, I would say, more mediocre. Some people kind of liked it. Some people didn't really like it. As of right now, Chris, I don't know if it has the lowest score on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's close to Eternals as far as having a significantly lower score than most other Marvel movies. So now there's all this discourse. Has Marvel gone downhill? Is this it? Blah, blah, blah. We all got to see the movie this past week. So I guess now we can just, do you want to start with like raw thoughts? I really don't want to do a whole plot summary because this was it was a lot. So I guess we could just talk about likes, dislikes, overall opinions, etc.
I mean, y'all know how I feel about Rotten Tomatoes. Like, who cares, honestly? But I think it's down where Eternals was, and I didn't think Eternals deserved to get all the hate they got. I thought it was just,
I would agree,
fine. And I feel like this movie was also just okay. There are some things I liked about it. There's one thing in particular I loved about it, which is Kang and Jonathan Majors' portrayal. Like, he was excellent. Everything else was kind of just okay, and that's fine. I have no problem with it. I think as my brother described it on Twitter, this movie was that group project, and Jonathan Majors put in the A++ effort, and everybody else put around like a C+ effort.
Michelle Pfeiffer, you know, I in the flashbacks at least, Michelle Pfeiffer, I thought actually gave a really good performance as well. But yes,
That's true.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, you know what, JJ, you can go ahead and give your thoughts, and then I'll give mine. So,
I have several thoughts that I don't know. I feel like I haven't gotten a chance to like actually like talk through about my thoughts about Phase 4 really, and I guess leading up to this movie. In my opinion, Phase 4 wasn't bad. I think it was just arranged badly. You know, and I think that can't be helped because there was a world pandemic and projects had to be released in a certain way. And I get it, but in hindsight, like seeing Phase 4 as like a whole like thing, I think we would have a much different opinion if I would say we had a WandaVision, Loki going into Far From Home, not from No Way Home, then into Multiverse of Madness as like a lead up and a finale, as opposed to being weirdly sprinkled throughout. Because once you put it in that direction, everything starts to line up and make a little bit more sense. You know, and not that I think we've been spoiled as Marvel fans that everything has to lead up to something. Where's the Infinity Stone? Where's this? Where's that? But I think that's a little bit of revisionist history because I'll be honest, like some of my favorite projects in the MCU have nothing to do with the wider, like, I guess, scope of the MCU. Like Black Panther, for example, has nothing to do with Infinity Stones. That's top 1 or 2 Marvel projects. Or
Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier that there's no Infinity Stones. So I think there was grace given then that is not given now. That being said, I feel as though this main problem of this movie, because I don't think it gelled the way it needed to, is that I don't think Peyton Reed really knows what he wants to say with Ant-Man, and I don't think the Ant-Man franchise has a cohesive theme or goal in general, and when you put a villain as big as Kang in that scenario, you're going to leave the theater wanting more. And I think that's what happened here.
Yeah. I also think, I remember, what was it, about a month ago, the script allegedly got leaked. And I didn't read it, so I don't know what it says, but people were calling it like the best Marvel script, you know, ever, which, you know, doesn't really do great things for expectations. But I think, going back to the Phase 4 discussion briefly, I think that Phase 4 is not the worst phase. Honestly, I think it's Phase 2, because Phase 2 for me really only has Winter Soldier, and everything else is either okay or not good. Like, I don't like Iron Man 3 that much because of its plot. I don't like Age of Ultron because I feel like it failed to lead up to what it was like trying to portray with Ultron. Like, Ultron to me wasn't that terrifying figure that he should have been, especially after that first trailer. Like, that first trailer, I watched that bad boy like 30 times when it first came out.
There are no strings on me. Yeah.
Right. And then let's see, then you have Thor: The Dark World. Am I leaving anything else out?
Guardians of the Galaxy.
I thought first Guardians was Phase 3.
No,
Phase
first
2.
Guardians is Phase 2.
Okay, so then so it has Guardians of the Galaxy and
technically Ant-Man 1 in there.
Yeah, I didn't see Ant-Man 1 until Phase 3, to be honest. I did not see Ant-Man in theaters. I did not see it until it came on Netflix.
I like the first Ant-Man, but we'll get to that.
This is the first Ant-Man I have seen in theaters.
Really?
I did not see the other two.
Okay, all right.
So
I have some opinions about this one compared to the other two, and like why some things I feel like didn't work. But sorry, Chris, continue.
Yeah, no, you got Ant-Man 1, Ant-Man 2, and Black Widow are the only Marvel movies I have not seen in theaters. But then Black Widow also came out during the pandemic, so. what you're gonna do. But yeah, no. So I think because Phase 4 is reestablishing where we are post Endgame world, you really have to compare it to Phase 1. And because people are like, "Oh, it's not leading to like an Avengers movie," it's like, well, yeah, because what are the Avengers really gonna fight like post Thanos right away? The world's got to recover.
No, I think. Oh, well, I hate doing this. I hate when people like rewrite movies or like here's what should have happened because I don't think it's the
Hmm.
way to do criticism. Uh, but this is probably saving for another TikTok. But I thought the next Avengers movie would be or should be or could be the new Avengers versus old versions of Avengers. I think we are in a place where everyone still has their like evil counterpart around,
Hmm.
weirdly. Like, okay, think about this. Like Sam Wilson has to get together a group of Avengers, right? But you have Falcon versus uh what's his name? John
John
Walker.
Walker.
John
Oh,
Walker.
U.S. agent.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You have Kate Bishop. You still have Bullseye running around because of Daredevil. You know,
Mm.
you also and you have like these weird super soldier villains. Like you get the red, you can go Ghost on there, Red Guardian, like an evil version of the Avengers versus like
Hmm.
the real Avenger, or like I guess the new version of
Like
their
a Dark
heroes.
Avengers type deal, like Norman
Yes,
Osborn in the comics when he was like, well, he was Iron Patriot or something like, because he was Iron Patriot in
Yeah.
the comics, right? Yeah, something
Right.
like that.
Justin Hammer still around. Oh, like what if Justin Hammer was like, "Oh, the Avengers are dead. Now's my opportunity." Hi,
Stay
everyone. Yeah,
stay
the
tuned for
Avengers are
Armor
around.
Wars.
Yeah, like I think that would be fun, but that's just my pitch.
No, and I think it's fine. I think one of the things that's different about, because we've all read comics, is that in the movies, nothing goes back to the status quo per se. You actually have to deal with the events that happened before it and how those characters relate to that. And when like series or arcs are over in the comics, then it kind of goes back to the status quo, besides those like few big events that happen in comics that like affected for decades to come. Like the first one that pops into my mind is DC's like when Barbara Gordon got shot by the Joker. Like that had ramifications. Or Jason Todd, wow, everything's Batman related. Jason Todd's death, Superman's death, like things of that nature, that reverberate throughout comics for years to come. Like that is nearly every Marvel movie, but definitely every Avengers movie or Avengers-esque movie, aka Civil War. Um,
Ano-
yeah, no,
Sorry. I was going to say another issue you have too is that in comics, characters literally get to live forever because you just have new writers. Batman's 30. We always use Batman examples, but Batman's 35 forever, right? In movies, actors get older. People don't want to do things anymore. Real life things happen, like Jeremy Renner's accident and Chadwick Boseman's passing. So in movies, these characters, at least the way we have them now, don't exist forever. All you can really do is reboot and recast sometimes. So it's kind of like, the way the movies are structured kind of has to be different than what you have in comics where people can just kind of exist forever. So it's just a different medium.
yeah. But bringing it back to Quantum Mania, so I saw someone on Twitter yesterday or the day before say like they counted the amount of times that Cassie said dad in this movie. And I feel like I couldn't tell whether they were just doing it like as a joke just to be funny because like she says dad a lot, or if they were trying to be nitpicky. But either way, I feel like, okay, what else is she supposed to call him? She's supposed to call him Scott, like
Mr. Ant
father.
Man.
Yeah, like what is she supposed to call him? Like, this is her dad that presumably she hasn't seen. I don't know how long this movie takes place after Endgame, but like she missed him for 5 years. Like I'm pretty sure she would be saying dad at every opportunity that she got for all those 5 years that she couldn't. I just feel like that's kind of the state where the Marvel fandom is in, is like unnecessarily nitpicking things I kind of blame CinemaSins for that, but that's another story.
It's funny, this off topic. It's funny that people blame CinemaSins for like the modern nitpickiness. And I don't know if you guys ever watched back in the day. You remember the Nostalgia Critic?
Mm-hmm.
No shade. I was
Oh.
in high school. I was a big fan
God.
of him. He would like do jokingly like mock reviews of movies. And back in the day, it was funny, especially because he would pick on like really bad movies. But I feel like a lot of people like took content like that, like the nitpicking a movie to make fun of it, a little too seriously. And now this just reverberated across the internet where it's like, you know, people nitpick on things that don't matter. Because I think like if I mean, I will guess I'll get to like my thoughts with Ant-Man. The bigger issue I feel like is we really don't get enough time with Scott and his daughter in the movie itself to really care about their relationship emotionally. You know, if you've seen the other movies, okay, but I think they could have done more to establish like, you know, how Scott has grown apart from his daughter a little bit and how he's trying to reconnect. You know, you could have had scenes where, you know, if he last time he saw his daughter, she was a kid and now she's almost an adult, you know, hey, have her favorite foods change. You know, there's things that you will miss if you didn't see your kid for 5 years. You know, maybe he buys her a gift for her birthday and it's super childish and she's not into it anymore. Like you needed, I think, a little bit more there to like really care about the, you know, that relationship. But, you know, this movie kind of had to be Kang's movie. So they were all, you know, they could only do so, you know, they could only do so much. And I think, I mean, at least for me, well, like Quantumania, I think the problem is that like, I don't know if Kang should have been the villain for this third Ant-Man movie. Like he should. I don't know. I mean, the Fantastic Four probably, but I'm like, he maybe should have been the villain for someone else because I'm not get off my soapbox in a second. Like at least the reason I like the Ant-Man movies, especially the first two, is because I felt like compared to a lot of the other characters, especially in early phases, like Scott Lang was just like a dude. He's just like a dad, right? Because most of the Avengers are like super geniuses or like legends or like master assassins. And Scott is like an okay thief, you know? And I think, you know, he was likable and relatable because it's like, you feel like, you know, either your dad or if your friend had a dad, they could have, you know, they could be someone like Scott, someone who's made some mistakes, but is generally like a good dude who's trying his best. And I feel like with this one, you really don't get much, you don't get that much of that because there's so much plot and so much story. We got to learn about the quantum realm. We got to meet all these new characters. You've got Hank and Janet, you've got Kang's whole backstory. So I feel like, you know, this is the one, you know, you kind of lost like, I guess why people like the Ant-Man movies in the first place is that it felt like a smaller, more personal story. So that's it.
I don't know. I think it was this morning actually. That I want to know what you guys think about this. I think the TikTok user is not Franklin's Herald or it's just Franklin's Herald. It's one of the two. And she's a huge Fantastic Four fan. And she was like, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania was a Fantastic Four film that they just shoved Ant-Man and family into. And I feel like that's actually kind of accurate with given the characters that you have, and I feel like it would have fit better with the Fantastic Four versus Ant-Man because like the Fantastic Four have beaten major villains on their own and everything. With Ant-Man, it's like, okay, yeah, everybody was theorizing that he'd shrink into Thanos's butt, and that's how they were going to win the day. Like, and everybody knew when they saw that matchup, Ant-Man was about to get stomped, dog walk. Like it was like R.I.P. Scott Lang. Nobody thought Scott was going to make it out of this.
So, I mean, I see where you're coming from, and I think that's one of the main problems of the Ant-Man franchise in general is that I don't think the Ant-Man franchise really knew what it wanted to be in the first place. Like it should have been a Fantastic Four movie. We're sitting here coming up with like all the things it should be, except for the thing that it is. And the problem with the Ant-Man, in my opinion, goes back to the movie wanting to be about Scott and Cassie.
Mhm.
but the movie never giving that time to really develop
Yeah.
Scott and Cassie.
Mhm.
And that's like in the first Ant-Man movie, like he's doing this for his daughter. And if the theme is fathers and daughters, you have a situation where it's kind of reflected with Hank and Hope, right?
Mhm.
And there's a point in the movie that's never really like I guess fixed or addressed, is that why isn't Hope doing this job when Hope is better? Hope knows the technology. She's all this stuff, but Hope is somehow she has a better relationship with the CEO that they're trying to steal from, but somehow Hope isn't like in this job. They need Scott for some reason because he's a master thief, but okay, whatever. Number two, in the second Ant-Man, Scott did something that put that relationship with his daughter in jeopardy, right? He's in the like house arrest thing, all this stuff, but I think that almost made him a better dad because he was in the house. He got to
Mhm.
spend time, uninterrupted time with Cassie, right? But what happens to Cassie? She's gone for the rest of the movie. And when there's time to develop Hank and Hope's relationship and their relationship to their lost mother, who gets the scene with Janet? Scott
Mhm.
as Janet. You know what I mean? So you have this like formula to set up these beautiful relationships, but we never really got a chance to explore them whatsoever in the first two movies. And so when you get to here, whereas it's the third Cassie, third
Mhm.
Cassie, Scott has been gone for 5 years. And the story is telling us Scott cares about his daughters. That's all he cares about. That's the thing. But yet he doesn't know Cassie's interests.
Mhm.
He doesn't know why she's like trying to help these homeless people. And they say it in the movie of like, Scott, aren't you the guy who did the Robin Hood bank heist? Why are you so against helping homeless people or Cassie helping homeless people? Why are you
Mhm.
so against helping the quantum verse people? Which we will never see those people again.
Mhm.
Sorry, I feel bad for William Jackson Harper because he kind of
Mhm.
punched his MCU ticket, and that character is just like a dud, a real dud. You know, why is Scott, who profited off of being a superhero, wrote a book about his superhero experiences and tells everyone, "Yeah, I fought with Captain America." Why is this man, who now has a chair or a company with Hope, who has the ability to help people, is so against helping people, is for profiting off his super identity, and yet he doesn't know what Cassie does, what her interests, doesn't even know that she has an Ant-Man suit.
Mhm.
And I think that's where my main rub of the movie is that is the movie is telling us X, Y, and Z and giving us something different. It's creating this dissonance of I don't know who Scott is because he's so different in this movie, you know? And like I got into like a huge fight on the comments of my Ant-Man video of like, well, they said it at the dinner table and stuff like that, but they said it, but like that's the problem. They are saying these things about these characters, and his actions are completely different in this
Yeah.
movie and throughout the entire franchise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like what probably would have been better is, it's one thing for Cassie to be going to protest and trying to help the homeless and everything like that and being thrown in jail in the surface world. He can get her out, Hank can get her out, Hope can get her out. They have the resources. She'll be fine there. Now, when you go to the quantum realm and people are dying and this is real, if Scott's first priority is making sure Cassie is safe, he could have been like, to any of the warriors, you take her to safety and then he goes to fight. That's like the general like superhero parent type thing. Make sure your kids are safe and then you go to battle. Like even if it's not your fight. Nothing past really the first Ant-Man, and you can make an argument there, has really been his fight. Endgame is arguably his fight because it's humanity's fight, but it's not that personal, like this is why I have to be here. So yeah, Scott, you're always been the guy to help the little guy. So you're
Literally, I
literally
think
not
you're
doing that
right.
here.
Yeah.
You were 100% right. I did realize that every battle that Scott has been in, has not something he's had personal stakes in.
Yeah.
And I feel like his best appearances were in Civil War and Endgame. Like I loved him in Endgame. He was one of the highlights for me back in the day. Just because like he fit in the role, like him being funny fit in the role where all the other Avengers are like depressed in those movies, you know?
It's just that like I don't know. And I think that's where my main rub of the movie is coming from. And I think that echoes into Kang a little bit, because we are told that Kang is this all-powerful being that can do anything and go anywhere that he wants. We are told that Kang has killed all the Avengers 1,000,000 times, and we are told that Kang has like overthrown 1,000,000 rebellions, and yet he can't handle a bunch of guys with sticks and ants.
Nah, he just couldn't handle the ants.
Really, you can disintegrate people, and the ants are giving you a problem, Kang?
Yeah.
Well, you put him on someone that had the same level of technology as him, whereas the other people didn't have it.
This is the thing. If you want a Kang to be defeated in this movie, even by the ants, I feel like they needed to establish more that this was a weaker Kang. You know what I mean? Like, because they kind of do that with like He Who Remains and Loki, but it's like, if you want us to worry about Kang, I don't like, if he's going to be defeated in his first appearance, you needed a scene with spoilers, with the council at the end. It's like, yo, he was the weakest one. That's why we kicked him out. Because I do feel like him going down the way he did, it's like, are we excited to see Kang again now? I also think I was going to mention this to you, Chris. So the post-credit scene, what I think they should have done, I think when they were at the dinner at the end for Cassie, I think a Kang variant should have been at another. She should have been sitting at another table with a newspaper. He should have put the newspaper down, and then it could have cut to that Kang with the council. Like, we saw the guy beat the biggest Kang. He beat so and so. Oh, well, he was pretty weak, but we should keep tabs on the Avengers. Like something like that, so that we understood. Like, okay, we still have stuff to worry about. You know what I mean?
So for me, when it comes to Kang, so I would say He Who Remains is a bigger threat than the Kang we saw in Quantumania. And I would say that because He Who Remains won. He won the war between all the other Kangs and has been there, and he was able to set up the TVA to keep that one singular timeline. So at that point, he doesn't have to flaunt any muscle or anything because he's won. And I would say that they do show that at least this Kang is weak because he lost and got exiled by everybody else. So when it comes to, him being down there, he's essentially been resting on his laurels because while, Janet and her people were, being their terrorist freedom fighter, that argument she tries to make. I was like, oh, that's cute. Way to not talk about that longer than 2 lines. But he really hasn't had an actual threat, so he's just been waiting and waiting so someone to come and get the Pym particle so he can leave. And he just was proud. He was just like, I got this, no one can touch me, and that's why he loses.
Why didn't Kang take the Pym particles from Scott?
Why? I have a lot of why questions for Kang, the heroes. Like, why are y'all just walking through that portal at the end of the movie? Why don't y'all just run through it? Like, why it didn't Kang? Like, why didn't Kang just take the Pym particles, have MODOK go in there and throw it in there? Like, MODOK is clearly smart.
We haven't even gotten a MODOK.
Like, he may not like actually survive that trip in there, but how do you know Scott would? Like, what's the purpose of keeping Cassie around? If you are going to betray him, just kill her, or, when she's making that speech or whatever, why are you waiting for her to finish before you're like, kill her? Like, as soon as she interrupts your speech, why are you making a speech at all? You're speaking to robots, maybe they're sentient. We're not entirely sure, but why do you have to make a speech? Just make your speech once you get on the outside. Like, there's no point.
Yes, I recognize that's a silly complaint from me, but I was kind of thinking, I was like, why do we need Scott? Why? You know what I mean? Like, and plus the whole like Pym particle thing. So like, remember in Endgame where the amount of Pym particles was so crucial to not like fuck up. You know, like you cannot like.
Well, that's because Hank wasn't there.
Yes.
Yeah, and so now he is.
If
Hank
like
and Janet and Hope.
Yeah, but like we're shrinking, we're growing, we're shrinking, we're growing. Doesn't matter. Like I was like, dang, I guess we have a surplus of Pym particles, you know? But I felt that was weird too. Maybe it's just me.
No, I just feel like at this point, because we saw it in Hawkeye, and the company is actively making these Pym particles because that's what she's using it for, and in everyday applications, that at that point they're producing them at an industrial level.
Oh, okay. So the guy who played MODOK's dream worked.
Pretty much.
So they're just doing it.
Except now they're doing it for beneficial reasons and not for capitalism.
I feel like the Pym particles would definitely end like any sort of world hunger or like issues of resources when you literally could just like, it's like that one move where you could
That's
just
pretty
make
much what they're trying
to
do.
Yeah.
Literally, Cassie says, as she's helping those homeless people who were displaced by the blip, if all the franchises or all the families that could help, Hank, you could solve homelessness right now.
Well, that's what they're saying Hope was doing, like when Scott was doing his little exposition dump. He was saying, she's helping to solve the housing problem and crisis. And I'm just like, yeah, okay. I mean, granted, it's San Francisco, so it's San Francisco, but I feel like you keep mentioning these things in the different Marvel projects, but nothing's ever really coming to a head outside of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we know how they did the Flag Smashers dirty, in my opinion.
Oh, and the Sokovia Accords are revoked in She-Hulk?
So
the toss-away line?
The Sokovia Accords were dumb. They were always dumb. They were always dumb.
Also,
Chris, are you serious?
Okay, all right. I'm gonna take 3 minutes to go about that because I don't think we talked about it.
I've been here before.
All right, let's talk about this. All right, so the Sokovia Accords, in the context of us in our state, right? Like where we know Infinity War Part 1 and 2 are happening and Thanos is coming. The Sokovia Accords mean nothing because what responsible superhero that we've seen, or irresponsible in the case of Tony Stark, is going to see Thanos invade and is like, you know what, I'm going to wait to see what the UN and the Security Council have to say before I go and defend wherever I am. No one did. That's why Rhodey, who is still a military man, actively ignores the Secretary of State, who is going to be the president in a couple years. Like, it didn't matter. So in that sense, that doesn't matter. When it comes to what the Sokovia Accords actually say, where the UN takes control of the Avengers, for the UN to do any kind of resolution to get a majority of the countries on board takes time. So threats would either massively escalate or be done with by the time the UN actually gets together. If it's the Security Council also has veto. China and Russia have veto powers. They could easily say no if it goes against their interests, or the United States could say no if it goes against their interests. That's an issue. The U.S. the most unrealistic thing in Civil War is not the fact that superpowers exist, is that the U.S. would ever give up sovereignty over their citizens to have someone else in control of them. Because the U.S. doesn't even do that now. We've passed laws to say that our soldiers won't be held accountable for war crimes for anybody under than us. And we've also done it for our allies as well. So it's just like, but the Civil War should have just been about Tony, Rhodey and Bucky's like, or Tony and Bucky, you know, like you have this situation where you have a so-called superhero on or superpowered villain on the run. Like superheroes go figure this out or make it only in the US like it was in the comics, because once you make it international, it doesn't really hold the same weight, because international law when it comes to the superpowers is kind of a joke. And I mean like the superpowers of countries, US, Russia, China.
And that's why he's a Star Wars lawyer, everyone.
Okay. Hear me out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I am pro Team Iron Man. Of course. Because, number one, if a superhero fucks up, I want the ability to hold that superhero accountable.
So then why are you Team Iron Man? Because no one ever held Iron Man accountable.
Here's the thing. Because there was no structure to do so until now.
Iron Man's a billionaire.
I'm not saying the Accords are perfect, but I think it's a step in that direction. For example, right? If Wanda, if what Wanda did, right? If she did that, I want the Sokovia Accords and the superheroes who are trained to take Wanda down, and not just
can't nobody take Wanda down.
I'm just saying that's why you have Captain Marvel sign the Accords.
You wouldn't do that.
Okay, I like it that I want to be able to hold superheroes accountable. Number two, the Avengers being a American private military is extremely scary for the rest of the world.
They're like special forces, yeah.
No, I understand.
Terrifying.
That.
I understand that they're the good guys because we're Americans and we see the movies and we see their actions. But if I'm in Canada and the Avengers are just they're under no supervision. If the Avengers just don't like what the Canadian government is doing, no one can stop them. Like for example, if the Weapon X program was happening in Canada, right? And Tony and Cap found out about it, which Weapon X is bad, right? If I'm the Prime Minister of Canada, I really don't like that the Avengers can just come in and just stop me. You know, not saying that I agree with it, but like, you know what I mean? That's I would like some United Nations legislation to stop the Avengers from coming over and fucking up my like evil plans, right?
I get that, but who what power does the UN have? What power does the UN really have? They don't.
They could have had the Avengers.
But how are they going to deploy the Avengers? That is the biggest issue.
You're acting like it's going to take forever. I don't think it's going to take that long because everyone is going to agree that Thanos coming to Earth is a bad thing. You know.
Yeah, but you have to get all the delegates together.
It's a Zoom call.
But they don't operate like that. That's the thing.
it's the MCU. Let it operate that way. And number three. My biggest hang up is that Cap, instead of negotiating or working to get a better solution, they broke up the Avengers. Then he became, I'm on call. Call me when you need me. Except he wasn't there when we needed him. Remember that speech? You did your best work after the fact, Cap? Where Tony like breaks down like Cap ain't shit, you know? Because he wanted to be on call. Like, really, bro?
To that point,
you had a Hulk, you had a Thor, you have all the negotiating power, you know. But
to that point, Cap was about to sign until he found out that Tony had Wanda essentially sequestered in the Avengers Tower, which Cap heavily disagreed with. I don't think he should have like not signed because of that, but it also showed that Tony wasn't being upfront with everything. Other thing is when it comes to the Accords being like ratified or whatever, they're not going to be changed after that. I mean, also besides the fact that it requires superpowered individuals to give up their DNA so that the UN can figure out how those powers work, and then
When
probably
did it say that? When did it
Agents
say?
of Shield.
I know nobody watched that.
I didn't, but I found out that information.
Hey, that is
Anyway,
a very you're don't send a very. I actually saw Shield all the way through. Shield has a very dedicated and passionate fan base. Don't the definition of a niche fan base. Don't anger them, okay? They won't leave you guys alone. There's people with whole literally like conspiracy maps about how Agents of Shield is still canon, even though I've seen that show all the way to the end, and separate timeline is the only way that works.
Mhm.
yeah, but
Man.
I think that the Sokovia Accords, I understand the international portion of it, but considering that realistically, when it came to the international outreach of the Avengers, they didn't really like try to hammer that home like they did with the Ultimates in the Ultimates universe. Like when the Ultimates set up that storyline, how the like some of the other superpowers or the axis of evil like came together with their own superpowered Avengers team to counter the Ultimates. They showed how the Avengers had invaded multiple countries and like to promote America's interests, whereas with these Avengers, with Sokovia, that was Ultron, which was Tony and Bruce's fault, that they had to go fix. If they do nothing, then humanity is wiped out. When they invaded they didn't necessarily say what country it was at the beginning of Age of Ultron, but relatively they kept that to the fortress or whatever until Iron Man sent his Legion of Iron Bots, which he had there was a whole thing about destroying those in Iron Man 3, but whatever. Keeping those separate. So they to set that up, they didn't really do enough besides at the beginning of Civil War, where Cap gets distracted and Wanda has to choose between letting everybody in that market get destroyed and possibly the bottoms of those buildings, or trying to contain that explosion, and then ended up killing some Wakandans and Nigerians. So I get the concern. I feel like the MCU didn't set that up enough. And then the other thing, when it came to Ross's presentation about how the Avengers hadn't really done like a good job, there's so much collateral damage. Almost, I think it was like 330 people died out of all those events that he showed. And it was like, I don't even think it reached to $1 trillion in damage. Like when you have an alien invasion, a potential mass apocalyptic event, and like several bombings, what happens in Winter Soldier, like only 300 some people died. That's a miracle. I mean, like you look at Man of Steel, granted you're having a whole lot more wide variety of powers. So many more people died. And that was relatively contained to one area. So, I mean, I was just like, the MCU didn't set that up enough where they could have. They just didn't.
They did not.
And then,
moving on.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, when the Sokovia Accords get revoked in She-Hulk, it's like, yeah, no one's going to care about that post Infinity War, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, the world lost half its population. We have bigger issues to deal with.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I'm pretty sure like Captain America Civil War versus Batman v Superman was like our first podcast episode ever.
Pretty sure.
All those years ago. So we've had this talk before. Does anybody have like any closing thoughts like on the movie itself?
Oh yeah, this is the Ant-Man podcast.
I know, right? First of all, should any of the good guys have died in this movie? Could you have killed off like Hank Pym? You think it's time? Like if you killed off Hank Pym, but you've been hurt?
Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead.
It's honestly, this is low-key the best Hank Pym ever in all iterations.
Yep, 100%.
Like comics, TV shows.
Because he's not abusive.
But here's the thing, like he's still kind of mean, but not in an abusive way. You know what I mean? Like, he's a jerk, but he's not like, yes, like, how often are people gonna like meet Ultron in real life? But like, domestic violence is a real thing that a lot of people deal with in real life. So like, I'm glad they took that away from his character. But this is hands down the most charming Hank Pym, the most like interesting Hank Pym in this movie. Like, he had some good one-liners. Like when Janet was like, "Cover me, Hank," and he says, "I always do." I was like, "Oh, Hank, Hank, where did this come from?"
And the fact that he was just like, like she was like, "I have needs," and he was like, "I get it. There was a, like a woman while you were gone." And he's like, "What happened with her?" He's like, "She wasn't you, baby."
Oh,
I actually like that only because I do feel like it's a rant. Like, I will say one thing about this movie: there were some good jokes in it. Like when I saw Bill Murray show up, and he had that look with Michelle Pfeiffer. I'm like, oh no, he was in there. They have a history. So like, I appreciate that was brought up. And like Hank Pym was chill about it because like I feel like we look at these characters, they're so idealistic and they're so perfect. But the reality is that if you thought your partner was gone for 30 years, most people would have at least tried to date, tried to do something within that amount of time. You know what I mean? Like, that is a realistic human thing. I feel like that's almost something that your girlfriend will ask you, like, "Babe, would you find anyone else if I was in the quantum realm for 30 years?" And it's like, 30 years is a long time. So I did actually like that joke in there. I thought it was pretty. I was like, oh, it makes sense. Yeah, I believe her.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have had Hank die. If anybody was going to die, it would have been Scott, or at in an alternative, Scott and Hope should have been trapped in the quantum realm.
Consequences that are taken away.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, there are no real consequences in this movie for the characters in it. So like, it would have been like Scott and Hope get sealed in a quantum realm, and they're like cut it off like all access to the above world, I guess, just so Kang won't get out again, because they don't know that Kang is like gone after he gets whatever with the power source. I don't know how to describe it, but like, they don't know, so they just seal it off, and he's, and that's that, sacrifice that he makes for Cassie. He's just like, I won't be able to see her again, but I'll know she's safe from at least this kind of threat. And Hope makes that choice to save Scott, like, and be there with him. Like, there are choices there, and there are consequences from those choices.
And the Ant-Man, or then the Wasp, is finally reunited with Ant-Man in the quantum realm.
Yeah.
It's like a closed loop on the first movie. It could be fun.
And we could also talk about, so Hope in this movie, was she pretty much just there to bail Ant-Man out? Like, she saves him at least twice. Did she save him a third time?
That's her pretty much in every movie.
As her movie is just being more competent than Scott in saving him. Like,
I thought she was the more interesting character from the jump. I like, they could have given her more of a personality in the first one, other than like, I am the more competent, more serious, female counterpart to the male hero. Like, they could have done more to develop her personality, and I feel like they, made an attempt to do that in Ant-Man and the Wasp. But like, she should have been the main character. Like, these should be Wasp movies, and you could feature, like, in the second one, Scott becomes Ant-Man because, her dad was Hank. But, like, Hope being, like, sort of a new character, sort of blank slate thing, because the Janet is the Wasp that most of us are familiar with. Janet has always been the more interesting character to me than Hank in every iteration, from the Earth's Mightiest Heroes animated cartoon to the various comic adaptations.
and I think, you guys obviously know Jay Stoops. She kind of talked about how, like, the Wasp in the comics is a much bigger deal and is high key like the heart of a lot of the Avengers teams, and in the movies, she is kind of regulated to being like, the sidekick action girl that's there for like the cool fight scenes. you know, and it is like in the comics, you know, Wasp is a founding Avenger, like that first like Avengers #1, and has a role on the team of literally like, I mean, not only was she the first girl I feel like on the team, but like she was the one on the team everybody liked. Like she was a heart. If the team broke up, everybody still kind of messed with Wasp. You know, Wasp was like smart and strong, but also like very girly. And I think, I mean, well, I was watching one of her videos this week, and it was kind of how like a lot of times, like sometimes with female superheroes, it's like they have to act super tough and super hard, you know, and that's not necessarily something that has to happen. Like a female superhero can still like have feminine traits and feminine qualities and still be like strong and powerful. So I think that, you know, the way Wasp treatment in the MCU, and also like the Hope and Janet thing, like the way they did it, a little strange. I get not making Hank the main Ant-Man because he's got a problematic history, but yeah, the treatment of Wasp in all 3 movies is just very strange.
Yeah.
I do think Janet. Well, I'm not Janet. I do think Hope was supposed to be in one of the drafts of Civil War, but then Evangeline Lilly got pregnant, I think, in between those movies, which is why you don't see her for a while between like Ant-Man's 1 and 2. Just a thought. That's another thing, like with the MCU. I mean, we've kind of talked about that, like, you know, they shuffle things around, things change because like you can't. There's so many moving parts of movies that don't exist in books where you just need writers and artists. So, yeah.
So yeah. Also, the one thing I'll say about MODOK, I'm not a big MODOK fan. He's just a character that exists.
We didn't talk about MODOK.
He's just a character that exists. I thought he was fine for what he was. I do think like the never be a like it's not too late to be a dick thing. I was like, all right, you can just move past this, all right. But like him being Darren, like those parts up until like his change of heart, I thought was fine.
I'm mad that they killed him.
That
could have been Cassie's Joker.
You know, that's typical MCU when it comes to their villains.
Why though? Why?
I don't know.
But it's not even just that they killed him. It's like they killed him in such a weird way where even when they're cracking jokes, even when he's dying, like Darren, you know, and it's like, okay, are we supposed to actually feel bad for this guy or not? Like
it's the Ragnarok effect.
That was a Ragnarok-y moment.
What do you mean the Ragnarok effect?
Because you know, one of my big problems with Ragnarok is a lot of the serious moments are undercut by a joke while you're trying to feel the weight of those emotional moments. And that's the issue. The one exception I have in that movie is Korg running in after Loki like disappears. He's like, "Piss off, ghost." That's it. That's all I got. That made me laugh. Other than that, it was just like, all right, come on. Maybe because that was the first one and it kept happening.
Yeah, I felt that in Love and Thunder a lot.
Yes.
Because it's like, I don't know. This is kind of serious. I don't know why we're like, the Asgardians are flipping broken.
Yeah.
Really broken. Like, really.
Speaking of Love and Thunder, I've seen a lot of people try to compare Kang and Gore in terms of like, oh, they were the standouts of the film, but they were both let down by the movie. For me, I feel like there wasn't enough Gore, and we didn't really see Gore get to do all that much, where at least with Kang, like we did get to see him do more.
He shows off his power. Kang does show off his powers,
right?
You know, when he fights the army and whatnot, and he does give Scott a pretty good beating, as much as they can do PG-13.
Yeah. So I feel like I see where people are trying to come from, but it's like, yeah, no, Gore like he's called the God Butcher, and we see him kill one god.
True. That is true.
Like, and that's before he officially becomes the God Killer.
I didn't even think about that. He only kills one. No, he killed the big one. That big monster-looking thing.
The monsters, yeah, but that was off screen. I mean, that was the body.
Yeah, he kills a bunch of gods off screen, but we only see him kill one.
Yeah, Sif almost died. Rest in peace, Sif. Oh, man.
She's still alive. She's just missing an arm.
But her character's dead.
Oh yeah, her character's been dead since the first Thor movie.
Oh,
There was one oh, what I was gonna say too. When they had the King flashback and Janet, like, you know, when she touches his ship and like sees all the stuff he's done to really drive it home how strong he was. We should have seen like corpses of the Avengers, even if you didn't want to pay the actors to be there or something to like scare us a little bit more. Maybe pay Mark Ruffalo a few bucks so he can lie in a corner.
I mean, you know, no, because then he would spoil that. No, just like show, you know, like Stormbreaker or Mjolnir, show the shield,
Cap shield,
show the wings of like, if you wanted to just do like the new Avengers, like show the shield and like the wings of Captain America, Sam Wilson, show if you really wanted to do it, show like the crown from Scarlet Witch or like the symbol from Captain Marvel or something like that. Like these are real easy things to do that you don't have to pay anyone unless you want to have some like extras do it just so you can have like the bodies there and you just like don't show the face. That's very easy to do.
Because like I would compare it to like you know, as many issues that, you know, you can talk about with Multiverse of Madness. You did have that scene where Wanda like destroyed the Illuminati. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, she's strong. I'm afraid of her. I get it.
And that was a weaker version of her.
Yeah, and it was a nerf version of her. So try to think. You guys have any closing thoughts? Because I know we want to get to DC and not keep JJ here forever.
I mean, I'm just excited for more Kang. That both post-credit scenes. Victor Timely, I thought that was hilarious. But you know, Immortus, Ramatut, and I'm gonna say the Violet Sovereign because he's not Scarlet. So I mean, it's interesting that those three are the counts leading the Council of Kangs, and that they all seem to kind of like not like each other. So Secret Wars is coming, and Kang's going to be the cause of it.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see Secret Wars being Kang versus Kang. My Avengers are better than your Avengers. Like one Kang has just like Cassie Lang, Kate Bishop, Miss Marvel, and the other Kang has like what, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and like Jessica Alba.
Yes, the Jessica Alba Fantastic Four.
Yeah, something like that. I think that would be really funny. But hey, what are you gonna do? I guess my closing thoughts about this movie is that I don't think it's a bad movie. I just don't think Ant-Man as a franchise really gelled, knew what it wanted to be, and therefore came up short of anything. You know, I don't know. I guess Kang, if Kang is this big and bad, can he win one fight? If Kang is supposed to be this all-time greatest villain ever, can he beat one revolution? You know what I mean? Can he outsmart one person? Can Kang be good at his job? Is what I'm asking of Marvel. So Kevin, when you do listen to this, let Kang be good at his job. Because at this point, Sam Wilson could take Kang.
Nah, I don't have you know, I think knowing that we had like the Kang dynasty and seeing what Kang has talked about and knowing that the next one was Secret Wars, I think like I was like, okay, I do have some hope for Kang. I remember there's one tweet someone trying to compare it to Thanos, where they're like, well, Thanos came out swinging, like killing two beloved characters and like, you know, laying hands on the Hulk and everything. And I'm like, well, yeah, Thanos had to do that. He only had 2 movies. Like he had to establish himself as a threat right away, like beat everybody down, win, and then lose in the next one. Kang has a few movies and a few TV series. Like he has time to like, and there are many different versions of him. He has time to do like various different things, you know. But again, Scott should have died or been trapped in the quantum realm or something at a minimum.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly agree with you guys' sentiments. Yeah, I'm saying, yeah, I do. I have heard that Marvel plans to like scale back their shows a little bit. I do want them to just take their time. And I mean, kind of like we said before, I feel like for Phase 4, they threw so many projects out in a million different directions that if they can take some time to straighten things out, and give people, I think there is a hunger for like the cohesive narrative again, at least closer to what we got in like say phase 3. I think that would be helpful. Because looking for the rest of this year, I mean, Guardians 3, I feel like will be good, but it's also like an ending. Unless you spin off some new characters introduced in that movie's kind of an ending. And then the Marvels, I'm actually pretty excited for. But Captain Marvel 1 had so much controversy. I'm sure the Marvels, I mean, that movie is going to have to be ready. That whole press team is going to have to be ready to fight like the mountains of incels that are going to be ready to nitpick anything that happens in that film whatsoever.
Yeah,
It's really
because
sad. It's really sad.
It
well,
is.
yeah, because now it's not just a white woman that's the lead. You also have a black woman and a Muslim woman as the leads. You're getting a whole range of racists and misogynists coming in. There's an army because
Yeah.
we saw how they reacted to Miss Marvel.
Like, I mean, to be for real with you, was Captain Marvel a good movie? I don't think so. But the biggest problem in that movie, in my opinion, was her supporting cast. She needed a much more stronger supporting cast because when Captain Marvel is doing all this like cool things and everyone's like, that's it. That's what she does. She's so cool. You know what I mean? I think having Photon and Miss Marvel there to really play up the scale of what this character can do and should be is going to help Captain Marvel Carol Danvers a lot. You know, because her best scenes were with Sam Jackson, where she had someone really good to play off of. So
I mean, I'm not a Carol Danvers fan, but that stretches back to the X-Men '97 series. So that's a long-standing beef. But I'm a fan of the original Captain Marvel, aka Monica Rambeau. So Photon, Spectrum, whatever name they give her. Yes, it's Black History Month. Say it loud. And I'm also a Miss Marvel fan from her introduction. I find like that she is a very fun, friendly, like relatable character for a lot of people, and so I like the interaction that they'll have with Brie Larson as Carol Danvers, because I'm a Brie Larson fan. So I think, like she did a good job, but it was just like, they told her not to have emotions for like 2/3 of the movie. So she didn't have emotion. But I think that's coming out in November now. That
They
got
pushed it
delayed.
back, but I expect the trailer to come out soon. I think especially after the Ant-Man reaction, Feige's going to fast track that.
Well,
Got to get all the Marvel fans on board for something new.
Rob, my brother, because JJ, I don't think you know that. My brother we were just talking about this like 2 hours ago, and he was telling me like it got moved to November. He was like, shooting has pretty much been done since July of last year. But November also has Dune Part 2 coming out, the next Trolls movie, and some other big ticket movie for another like age demographic besides like kids and adults. So that's a lot of competition to be putting that up against unnecessarily, considering it was supposed to come out first at this point in the year. It was supposed to have this date that Ant-Man had, and then it got pushed back to July. Now it's gotten pushed back again. So Kevin Feige knows what he's doing, or doesn't. I don't know.
Hopefully.
We'll see. But moving on to the Kevin Feige of DC.
Yeah, so we don't have to go through every project, but I want to say like a month ago almost, or pretty close to it.
It's been about 3 weeks.
We haven't had a podcast since. James Gunn, he's him and I forget the other person.
Peter Safran.
Yeah, Peter Safran are sort of the Kevin Feige of DC. They're rebooting the universe pretty much. They've got the slate. So I mean we can start with like the negatives. Henry Cavill's out. So they sort of tease him coming back at the end of Black Adam, but Black Adam didn't perform well. So from what it looks, James Gunn decides like, hey, we're just going to do a brand new Superman story in our new universe. The trials and tribulations of Henry Cavill and Henry Cavill fans continue. I think he's working on like Warhammer or something like that. Hopefully he can find a new franchise, because if I were him, I probably would be done with DC at this point.
I mean,
after
just make
being
him
jerked
James
around
Bond.
so much.
Just make him James Bond.
You know, he could. Yeah, you know, he maybe.
I saw The Man from U.N.C.L.E. He could do it.
I'm gonna say it here because I can't say it anywhere else. I'm gonna say it with my full chest. Fuck Henry Cavill. Yeah, I said it. I said it.
No, there are some legitimate reasons for that.
No. I hated his Superman. I hated it. The worst.
Yeah.
Get him out of here.
I had a conversation with someone about that on one of JJ's videos, and then I got blocked for no reason.
see the strife that Henry Cavill is causing.
The crazy thing was that conversation started off with me agreeing with one of JJ listed like 5 different things that Henry Cavill Superman did that he disagreed with. And I think I agreed with all of them except for one. And I was like, I can make an argument for another. But the first one was the truck incident where he, ruins that trucker's thing and truck. And I was like, well, yeah, okay. He sexually assaults the waitress. He, then assaults Clark and then tries to pick a fight with him. I'm like, okay, yeah, we've seen Superman, to cause property damage to someone being petty or getting vengeance or something like that. That's not unique to Henry Cavill's thing. Also, I would just love to see the insurance adjuster. Maybe I should make that a TikTok. The insurance adjuster be like, what happened to your truck?
Hurricane, exactly. You didn't see?
Like, okay, here my beef is that the crime, the punishment does not match the crime. And he doesn't even know that Clark did it.
Yeah, okay. All right, to that point, Superman 2, he gets beat up by that bully in a diner, right? He comes back sometime later, several days later at least, and not only shatters that dude's hand when that dude punches his stomach, which, it's Superman. He could have moved out the way. He then picks him up and puts him on the dining room thing and shoves him across, ruining everybody else's food, and then he breaks the pinball machine. You got everybody else involved for no reason, at least because generally truckers at least have some kind of stake in their truck if they don't outright own it. It was related to the person, didn't get anybody else involved relatively. So, and also the insurance is going to give him his truck back.
But like the logs that some guy lost.
Oh no, it was on his truck. It was a logger truck.
The cost to get it down, like all the electrical problems that okay.
He just employed other people.
There's an easy fix to this, right? Because people were thinking like, oh, does Justin support sexual assault? No, obviously I don't. The easy fix is he tries to punch Henry Cavill. He breaks his hand or something. Henry Cavill picks him up and just throws him out of the bar, breaks the bar door, and then the guy falls on the ground. So therefore, the bartender or the owner of the bar is angry that Henry Cavill broke the bar door, causing him to get fired, right? But the guy has a broken hand. He's not going to come back. And he's banned for the rest. I think that's perfectly fine. Doesn't really affect that many people. It's just the guy getting what he deserves instead of the super aggressive way to ruin this guy's livelihood,
I will say the only difference is that then you have a bunch of witnesses that show that Clark did all those things, which means that's a bigger trail leading to him. That's one big event, but no one saw him do that. Mm-hmm. So in the terms of blending in, neither is really a good option. But I feel like that the one you described is more public than the other.
Here's the thing. I think that's a reasonable show of strength where it's like a good story to tell, but it's not absurd. If you've seen that, in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Uncle Phil throws Jazz out the door. You know what I mean? I don't think it's that crazy of a feat of strength just to push this guy out the door,
the punching on and shattering
The fans
his
can't
hand.
see. The listeners can't see. I'm just nodding my head right now.
But okay, but no. So yeah, so that's that. So yeah, R.I.P. Henry Cavill Superman. But
good riddance.
I'm gonna read the slate that we have that was announced. So we have Superman Legacy, which is supposed to show a younger Superman. And it's supposed to be based off of our All-Star Superman, or not based off of, but like that's kind of one of the inspirations for it, which I love that comic series, so I'm down for that.
Yeah, we got to start over. It's okay.
Yeah,
so yeah,
that's fine.
Superman Legacy. Hopefully they cast a younger actor that can grow into the role, and they have a plan and don't jerk them around.
Yeah. Next we have The Authority, which, if you don't know, it was a 1999 comic book series. It was published under Wildstorm under DC. So it's like 7 superheroes that have sort of like interesting powers. So one of them, like he's psychically bonded to a city, and that's where he draws his strength from. So it's like, a spirit bomb, except, not. So there's that. The Brave and the Bold, which will be a Batman and Robin series with Bruce and Damian Wayne, inspired by Grant Morrison.
Sorry. I was gonna say we're gonna have 2 ongoing Batman film franchises, because they want the Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson to be its own thing, and then they're gonna have their own. They're gonna have another Batman that's connected to their universe, which is him and Damian Wayne. How do you guys feel about Damian Wayne, by the way? A lot of people hate him.
I'm fine with him. As long as he still tries to be a dick, and Nightwing gives him those hands. Just to be like, you got to learn. But I like Nightwing and Damian better than Bruce and Damian as a pairing.
I would agree with that, because you have like a softer Batman and a harder Robin. Yeah.
You know what? I'll say it. Fuck Damian Wayne.
I knew it. I knew someone was gonna. You never have a group call where everyone likes Damian Wayne.
Here's the thing. It's not always fuck Damian Wayne. It's like 99 times it's fuck Damian. The problem is that Damian Wayne is a commentary on the previous Robins, and we have never, ever had a good movie version of Robin. Ever. So my beef is that it's skipping to the end, and that's a problem that DC has had forever and continues to have. We do not need a Batman v Superman movie in Superman's second appearance. And this strikes the same tone of that, because Damian Wayne, it doesn't make sense why Damian Wayne, for me, is an asshole if he's the first Robin. It doesn't make sense because Damian Wayne in his first appearances wanted to be the best Robin. It wanted to take over Tim Drake and Spot, and he kind of kicked Tim Drake to the curb, and Tim Drake's in a limbo.
Well, he won't be the first Robin. The other ones will have existed.
Here's the thing, though. I think it strikes the same thing of like DC wanting to get to the good stuff without laying the proper groundwork to get there. I don't want to just meet Dick Grayson as Nightwing. I want years of him being a Robin. I want that, and I think some studios execs sat in the room and was like, I guess we're doing Robin, but Damian Wayne makes the most sense because that is his son, right? And I'm like, guys, like,
I'd argue that it's not that kind of. It's to me, it's like when you had the Justice League cartoon and you had Wally West be the Flash and not Barry Allen. But it's because this generation's Robin is Damian Wayne, just like our generation's Flash was Wally West, because Barry had been dead and Dick Grayson had been Nightwing since the I don't 80s, 70s for Dick Grayson, one of the two. But Barry had been dead since the 80s. And so then when you bring Barry back, you have now this generation behind us. Their Flash is Barry Allen, mostly because of Grant Gustin. And then now you have they haven't aged down Dick Grayson since the All-Star Batman and Robin, and that's a whole cluster. And so now you have this generation that with the animated movies had Damian Wayne as their Robin, and Dick Grayson was already Nightwing. So that's what they're kind of used to, besides like Teen Titans Go, where they don't really harp on the alter egos all that much. So to them, Damian Wayne is Robin, and I think there is good stuff with each Robin that they could easily have harped on. I just don't think if they started today with a Dick Grayson as Robin, that we would ever get to a point where we would even reach realistically the good stuff of a Tim Drake Robin after Dick Grayson becomes Nightwing, because I don't think it would last that long.
We're building a whole universe. If Marvel, we got 10 years to get to Thanos. We have time. Well, I don't know if DC has or Warner Brothers has their current time.
Well, no, I don't think any cinematic universe is going to do that kind of thing again, because even looking at with this Phase 5 and 6, we're getting that in 6 years
as opposed to 10. Yeah.
So, like, hear me. Like, think about it this way. First movie, Brave and the Bold with Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne. Second movie, he becomes Nightwing. Third
That's
movie,
too fast.
No, like one movie at a time. And you have all the Justice Leagues in between, you know what I mean? Like all that stuff.
We didn't even talk about Jason Todd. That's a whole other thing.
Third movie, Jason Todd comes and dies.
That's too fast.
We have 10 years, Chris.
Okay, but think about it, because one of the reasons why Dick Grayson becomes Nightwing is because he's fed up being under Batman's shadow and Batman treating him like a kid. That's too fast to like, if you have like them working on their partnership and becoming one in that first movie, and then the next time you see them, they hate each other. You're like, well, what happened in between?
They hate each other.
Not hate each other, but they're
realizes that he needs to grow up. There's a graduation. Okay, think about it this way. Think about it. First movie, Brave and the Bold, Dick Grayson, Bruce Wayne, right? The next Batman movie isn't for 3 years. Let's say this Robin is 12 years old, right? So between those 3 years, we can get a Teen Titans project. We can get a Justice League project. All this stuff where you see Dick Grayson growing up and like interacting with the DC universe. And by the time we get to Nightwing mode or graduation, Batman graduation, I guess what I'm calling it, I don't know. It makes a little bit more sense. You feel like you spent some time with that character. So,
yeah, but at that point, you're requiring other projects to fill that in, where you may not necessarily get that, given DC's weird embargoing of characters in one medium versus another medium that has persisted since the 90s. I just don't think that you can get that without skipping a lot and having a Batman that's going to be 9 pictures in for, a decade. Like, I feel like we're really getting away from that because people are getting fatigued from franchises unless you have significant space out it or really refreshing stories, i.e. Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible movies coming in for 7 and 8 after the first one was like 99 or something like that.
We got time. Trust me, Chris. We got time. But actually, it's not my slate, so I guess I don't have the time. What am I talking about?
That's what fanfic and AO3 is for. So next we have Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, based off of that series by Tom King, which I haven't read yet, but I'm going to because I just picked it up.
Everybody like Kara's become a lot more popular, I would say, over the past decade or so. She had the CW show. I love the version of Supergirl, the Flash movie. Like, people like Kara.
Comic wise, she was my favorite Kryptonian for a while. up until like All-Star Superman, because I got the Supergirl comics in like the mid 2000s through probably like the early 2010s. And then, she got done dirty on Smallville.
Is it fair to say in the last decade they've been putting more energy into like a Superman family? Like Batman's always had the Bat family. I feel like the Superman family was like much more loose. But now I've seen the comics, it's like, okay, you've got his kid, you've got Connor, you've got Kara, and they're all like together. You know?
They tried, because you had Superman and Supergirl. Then Supergirl dies in Crisis of Infinite Earths. So then you have Matrix and Siri-L and a couple other like Supergirl variants that all existed at once. And then they kind of rebooted things. And so then you had also Power Girl. Then you reboot things or merge the universes again. And so now you have a Supergirl, you have Power Girl, you have Con-El after the death of Superman run. And then, they tried the Superman family, Batman family, and the Superman Batman comics, the world's finest comics. And then post Final Crisis, or whatever that next crisis was, enter John Kent. And now they're really trying to hype on like Superman family. Like they've tried a few times. They're finally getting it right.
Just an anecdote. Anyway,
yeah.
Next.
Next we have Swamp Thing, which I have no thoughts on.
Pass.
Creature.
What are we doing, James?
Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing.
I mean, people really like Swamp Thing, apparently.
No, okay.
Like Swamp
and
Thing.
It's supposed.
Swamp Thing's never done anything for me, but people like him.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be an origin story.
You know what I'm about to say?
Yeah.
Fuck Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing. No, but it's one of those things where it's like I really wish James Gunn and DC. I don't know if this makes sense. You ever been in like a game or on a team and you don't have time to experiment? You don't have time to try the whole bench. You need the heavy hitters up there. It's like a tie about to go into overtime. I don't need to like, oh, why don't we try out Jimmy? Why don't we try out Swamp Thing? No. We need to win the game, James. We need the heavy hitter. Give me the
I would have, because if you're trying to do like the Magic characters, I would have done Zatanna and John Constantine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Detective Chimp.
To that point, JJ, I will only say that Marvel brought out its C-listers and it worked.
That's true.
Not before. Okay, here's the thing.
Yes, from the beginning, Iron Man was not an A-lister. Iron Man was not.
That's okay. Here's the thing. When you have a bench that is as deep as DC, you have the OGs. You don't have like a Batman ripoff, bro. You have Batman. Let's go. Like you don't have a Superman ripoff. You don't have the Sentry. You know what I mean? You have Superman. Like,
now,
what are you doing?
I have my pitch for how I would start the DC universe, but we'll get to that. It's very.
I don't know if we have
simple.
4 hours today.
No. It's very simple. Like I can do it for each character in like 3 sentences because I started off with 3. Like the first phase is only about 3 characters. So next you have Creature Commandos, which is essentially Suicide Squad but with monstrous prisoners instead of regular people.
Not?
Led by Amanda Waller. Next, you have the Amanda Waller series, which will feature Team Peacemaker. It's written by Crystal Henry that did Watchmen.
They have Oscar award-winning Viola Davis on contract. They're like, we got to use her as much as possible before she pieces out.
I mean, it's written by the Crystal Henry who did Watchmen and Supernatural's Jeremy Carver. So they know how to write good things. So I'll give it a shot. Booster Gold, pass. I've never liked Booster Gold. I have never liked Booster Gold.
Booster Gold is like, I don't he's an interesting character. He's definitely like the white dude that fails up, you know?
Yes.
JJ doesn't want to laugh, but he's laughing on the call. It's just like, it is what it is.
Then we have Lanterns, which is going to be a Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart buddy cop. I could do less with Hal Jordan, but I love Jon Stewart, so I'm down.
Pass, because it should be a movie, not a TV show.
You know, it depends. It depends on how they do it, because they're saying it's like supposed to be a mystery thing. I'd rather see a mystery TV show than a mystery movie in a superhero setting. Just because, especially since this is the first Green Lantern iteration we're really seeing since Ryan Reynolds, I'd rather it be given the time to develop.
Only if Hal becomes Parallax and then John has to kill him. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, go watch the animated movie.
I know, that's the joke I was making. Yeah,
Yeah,
something else.
yeah. That animated universe is something else. And then the next one is Paradise Lost. We're not entirely sure what it's going to be, whether it's going to be the origin of Themyscira or if it's going to be Wonder Woman itself. It's people are saying Games of Thrones like style. I don't know. We'll see.
Pass. The hardest pass.
For me, this is my pitch. If it is, I'm doing it. So you have you focus it on the Trinity. You have Superman, because then you bring in the cosmic element of the other space. Like you had a Green Lantern of so I think it's Sector 2813 that you can bring then, and you have Superman landing and dealing with probably I would say Metallo type villain, the U.S. military, Lex Luthor. You bring in those areas of his mythos, but you tease things like Brainiac and Darkseid and other things like that, because, you know, he has the fortress. You have all that knowledge, some of that. Batman, he's your leg for Earth-based threats. So you have him introduce, like you have his rogues gallery, but you also bring in people like the government, where you have Amanda Waller, the Suicide Squad, the like his other allies being like Zatanna, John Constantine, which you're teasing for things like Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman is the mystical and mythical like leg of the DC universe. So you have the mythical gods, but you also have how she was brought to life by the mystics, and that touches on people like the Wizard and the Phantom Stranger and all those other people, and use those franchises to birth and spin off the other heroes. And the first Justice League quote unquote movie I would do would be based off of the Trinity comic book series, which had Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman team up to fight Ra's al Ghul, Bizarro, and Artemis, who was helping train Ra's people. And as Ra's, tries to do his thing as being an eco-terrorist. And that through that, you can introduce, like, Aquaman has a cameo in that one. You're expanding the larger world of what this DC universe is.
So, Chris, how many movies would you have before a Justice League movie?
Before an actual Justice League movie?
Justice League movie.
Probably one or two more after that Trinity movie, because you can use Batman to introduce Barry Allen as a criminal forensic scientist, or he could visit Metropolis, one of the two. Aquaman could be mentioned or referenced in another Wonder Woman movie, because Atlantis and Themyscira have a ancient history. That's basically all you need. I don't believe really anybody else besides Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman need an origin movie or a movie before a Justice League movie, because most of those characters have been so woven into the pop culture fabric that we know their general story. Okay, but we just need to know, how are these characters motivated in this one? We don't need movies for most of them.
Okay. I'd watch it.
Chris, you put your application in with Warner Brothers.
That's yeah. Yeah, my contract would be stipulated on the fact that give me Batgirl.
Yeah, we never talked about that too. No, I understand why they did it, but yeah, it was a fucked up that they canceled a movie, or was it a show or a movie? It was a movie.
It was a movie.
A movie that was going to be on HBO Max, I think, right? That's what.
Yeah, it was going to be on HBO Max. They were considering it being a theatrical release, but it was, like it was pegged for HBO Max, and then they just canceled it outright
out of nowhere. And I think one of the directors was like, wasn't he at his own wedding or at his own wedding reception?
Yeah,
when he got the text, like, yo, they deleted your movie, and I'm like, dog.
He found out when we found out.
Worst day ever. Man, I was like, man, Hollywood is brutal. It's a business, I guess, at the end of the day.
And a tease for a future podcast, and people are like, they canceled that, but they didn't cancel the Flash movie. We'll get to that on another
we didn't even talk about that,
because that is a full discussion with various different layers. And
it's I'm saying Shazam's coming out. There's an Aquaman 2, and the infamous Flash movie with the infamous actor is coming out. So that is
and y'all are both on TikTok and Twitter, so I know y'all are seeing it, but too many people are talking about movie contracts and deals with production crews and everything like that have never read or touched a contract. So
I'd rather talk about that than Hogwarts Legacy. So,
Do you think people should see The Flash?
I think that people should do whatever their moral compass allows them to do. I don't think you should push people one way or the other, because it's a nuanced conversation. It's not like when it comes to that, people are comparing it to Hogwarts Legacy, and I'll say this: when it comes to Hogwarts Legacy, as J.K. Rowling is the brainchild of the wizarding world, there is nothing that does not get tainted, because at some way, shape, or form, she is profiting from that. And she has said that she will use her profits to further harm against trans people. When it comes to things like a movie where you have the star of the movie that is a criminal, I don't want to call them a criminal mastermind, but let's just call them a serial criminal.
Like they're real life super villain.
Eobard Thawne in the flesh.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like they maybe they're playing Eobard Thawne in the movie, and it's just a whole misdirect.
It's just one of those things where it's like there are so many other people involved in the process that did not know that was going to happen. It's one thing if they did all those things and then they were like, okay, we're going to make the Flash movie now, and everybody else that got involved knew what they were signing up for, as opposed to all these other people that signed up for things and then these things happened. I think that is a much more nuanced conversation to get into about at what point do we draw a line? And I think that is a much more individual thing than a society thing. I think too many people are trying to draw up societal lines, and that just doesn't work given how diverse people are in their upbringings, in their life experiences, and the willingness to use a sort of scorched earth policy when it comes to pop culture things, let alone any kind of other capitalistic enterprises, whether they things that we need, things we want, or things we just get entertained by.
Yeah, it'll be its own episode, because I think there's a lot that there's a lot that goes into it for sure. My only last comment is internet, please stop suggesting that Grant Gustin take over for the movie Flash. That man wants to retire. Okay, he's got kids. He's got a kid at home. Y'all aren't even watching the Flash season 9, which is on the air right now. Let the man rest.
He's tired.
Grant does not want to do it. 100%. He can have a cameo. He should have a cameo because he's a part of the legacy. I mean, as of right now, Grant Gustin is the best live action version of the Flash we've had, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But he should not be the movie Flash. We need to move forward.
Yep.
If you're gonna, get rid of Erza, you need to bring a fresh actor with no baggage into the role, and we need to move forward.
I'm fully on board with getting rid of Ezra. Like this is a universe resetting movie. Get rid of them. Get rid of them. They are I think in the comics they changed how Barry looked in between pre-Flashpoint, during Flashpoint, and post-Flashpoint. Just do that. Everybody looks different. Oh my gosh, what happened to Ezra?
Let's
I
be
don't know.
honest.
Not the Flash anymore.
Let's be honest, since no one said it. I mean, Wally's more interesting than Barry. I think
100%.
we should just, oh man,
So
just
is Bart.
give us Wally, please, and then we don't have to worry about Barry. I mean, Barry, they've done a lot of work on Barry over the years to make him more interesting. I mean, they've made him much more Peter Parker-esque. Chris, would you agree with that? Over the years,
well,
but Wally's still a better character.
I would say both MCU Peter Parker and Barry Allen in the CW verse and even some of the comics are benefiting from the same thing. They're taking the better parts of Wally West and Miles Morales and grafting them into their predecessors. That's what they're doing.
Fair. All right. I guess we've been going for a minute. Do we have any closing thoughts on DC? Anything in general? JJ, if you have any projects or anything coming up you want to give a shout out to, go ahead. Remind them where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me wherever toys are sold. TikTok, Instagram, and on TikTok at Freddy's Roommate. And right now I'm doing a podcast under Decoding TV with David Chen. It's called Decoding Reality, where we review The Bachelor. It's kind of a pseudo sequel to my original podcast with Deja Talks TV called Screen Studies, where we like analyze like movies and television through the lens of like how it's affecting our culture. So that's been a hoot. If you want me to follow me, and I guess I'd really appreciate it. So please do, I guess.
Yes, stamp of approval on JJ's content. I think it's been probably close to 2 years. I don't know. Time is a blur. But yeah, no. JJ makes great content on a wide variety of issues, from comics to real life and fashion to just general comedy. He's got range.
Yeah, I don't have a niche. I guess I'm the niche. I have way too many niches. I don't know. It's my account has evolved so much. It's hard to I've gone viral for so many different things. It's hard to know what people came from. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But all right, thank you for coming on, and Chris, take us home.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, thank you again. JJ, for coming on. It's been a pleasure. You're always welcome back on the show anytime. He's making a face like anytime.
Anytime.
And we've got a hope. Yeah, I mean, this is the first podcast. It's a new year too. It took us a while, so definitely look forward to some cool things coming down the pipeline. And until next time, live long and prosper.
There are more of us.